Hi there, vinyl community. My name is Tom. I'm with Tom of High Ramble District. High Ramble District is the name of my YouTube channel. Mostly out of laziness. It's High Ramble District is what I've always used for a Twitter handle and a website, and those are kind of ranty areas. And don't worry too much about the YouTube channel. I don't anticipate it being ranty. Fingers crossed, because in the past year that I've been watching YouTube videos for the vinyl community, it's very peaceful. It's mostly informative, but it's peaceful. There's a really good vibe in the vinyl community. I've been watching for a year. I'm like, hey, I got to do a video. I got to start this. Got to get in on this. I'm consuming, and not pitching in. I'm a lazy son of a bitch. There's really no other way to phrase that. And I don't know what I want to say, and I got one of those faces for radio, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, no better way to do this than to just do this. So I live in Portland, Oregon, and grew up in the Bronx in New York, and then out to Long Island, up to Buffalo for college, over to Denver for a better job, and eventually early 2000s, I just been working my way west. Now I'm in Portland. Since the early 2000s, I really like it here. Although I could definitely see myself going back east at some point. Sports are at ridiculously early times out here on the West Coast. I don't want to watch the Islanders or the Cosmos or what have you, or the Mets. It's just like I'm still working, and it's like 4 o'clock and the games are starting here. Where it's 7 o'clock out in the east. Yes, I almost went on a rant there, and I'm not going to do that. Anyway. Like most people my age, I'm in my late 40s. I used to have a bunch of records, not a ton, but as combination of moving across the country and wanting to travel a bit lighter, and the shift in the music industry to CDs, as we were sold on the benefits of more compact format and digital perfect audio. What was not to like? So my music collecting turned to CDs, and it wasn't that big of a headache to, in the mid-90s or whenever, to, just sell or dump records and just kind of move more lightly across the country. And then, maybe like 2 years ago, my girlfriend, I say girlfriend, but, we've been together for 9 years now. If either one of us really believed in marriage, we'd be married. But that's a subject for another day, and not for this channel. So anyway, she got me a record player, a Crosley, and it's portable. And, you just kind of pop it open, flips open, you drop it on the floor, and, that kind of speaks to the kind of sound you get out of it. So anyway, I didn't use it that much. It was super sweet of her to get me something like that. And then I've had a couple of records that just kind of like traveled with me, just like 5 or 6, and maybe like 10 or 12. Anyway, they never sounded that great on the turntable, and so it wasn't 2 years ago. It wasn't really a rush to get back into records. As time goes on, you just kind of. The one thing that's always been a draw to me is music. I can put aside the television for a bit. I can, sad to say, I can put down books for a bit, but music is always a draw. When I lived in Denver, this might have been, it was either 2001 or 2002, I can't remember which. When I was at work, my apartment got broken into. And I got, what did I lose? I lost like a Super VHS VCR, back when that was a thing, or a DVD player, a laptop, and all of my CDs, all my music, gone. And to this day, I don't miss the DVD player, the VHS player, or whatever, the laptop even. I was like, it's just, it's a thing, it's a laptop. But what burns me to this day is the loss of music. I kind of like, especially when I lived in Buffalo, went to so many shows and, so many bands that were just around for like 5 minutes that had some music out. I would grab it and enjoy it, and the quantities of those things were probably so small that, you know, remembering what everything was and finding what everything was, I didn't have anything cataloged. Just a pain in the ass, you know, and it just burns me to this day. You know, it's somebody takes your laptop, somebody takes your DVD player, whatever. You know, but taking your music is personal, and that really burned me. It burns me to this day. It's been over a decade since I've been robbed. Burns me to this day. You know, I'm in you know, where I live now. You know, it's a 3-story house. You know, I don't keep anything significant on the first floor because, you know, I'm afraid of getting robbed. You know, music wise anyway, and you know, so I have a certain amount of paranoia about getting robbed. I mean, particularly the things that matter most to me, which is mostly, you know, music and my girl and my dogs. I don't know, priorities. So anyway, things that have influenced me music-wise. I mean, the music that I like is alternative, back when it was alternative, you know, like in the early 80s. You know, MTV was an influence. When I lived on Long Island, WBAB out of Babylon was an influence. You know, they would, you know, drop a whole record side on, you know, it was album-oriented rock back when that still existed, you know, and they'd play, you know, whatever, you know, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, what have you, play a whole album side, you know, that was great, you know, it was great to hear. Most of my musical taste doesn't necessarily float that way, you know, I'm kind of all over the place, except for classical, which I like, I just don't own any, and jazz, which I don't own any because I don't know, I hate jazz. But everything else I pretty much like. Alternative, when alternative was a thing, is a big thing with me. You know, rock, punk. You know, kind of grew up on the Sex Pistols, the Clash. Music in that era, you know, in the late 70s, early 80s, is kind of what grabbed me. When I went to college in the mid 80s, I went up to school in Buffalo. Buffalo, as you may or may not know, is a suburb of Canada. It's right on the border. And, you know, although it's about like a 2-hour drive up to Toronto, you know, my favorite radio station was CFNY out of Toronto. And, yeah, it's a great radio station. Or at least, you know, I haven't listened to it in ages. Every now and then I'll pop it online. But it was a revelation compared to non-college U.S. radio, in that Canadian radio, and probably television, I'm sure, has Canadian content laws. You know, a certain percentage, like either 30%, 50%, somewhere around there, depending on the type of station. A certain percentage of the content that is broadcast on Canadian radio has to be Canadian content, whether it's, you know, the musician, the composer, whoever writes the music, you know, in whatever way, it's got to be a certain percentage Canadian. And Canada, you know, is a vast geographically, but there's not a lot of people in Canada, and so, you know, you hear a lot that you probably wouldn't hear otherwise, and that's, you know, that's a good thing. Imagine like living in if you lived in Nebraska, and, you know, 30% of what you heard on the radio had to be Nebraska content. A couple things happen. I mean, you'd hear things you don't normally hear, and bigger thing is it probably helps, you know, spur creativity and spur local people to create music who otherwise wouldn't, because it's like, I'm in Nebraska, I got to get somebody, you know, in New York or LA to hear my music. That's not the case, you know, if you had content laws that, you know, within your certain area you had to be, you know, a certain amount of the radio play had to be local content. So anyway, I guess a lot of the music I grew on up there was, I heard a lot of Canadian music, you know, Rush. Heard a lot of Rush way back when. And this radio station, CFNY 102.1 out of Toronto. If you were ever wondering what Rush's song "The Spirit of Radio" was about, they wrote it about that station. That station, you know, is that important. So anyway, that influenced my music. You know, my tastes have been influenced by where I live. You know, I like to go see local music. So, you know, seeing stuff here and there throughout my moves. So anyway, I guess, you know, I'm really just saying hello here. I know this is getting a little bit long. I don't want this to be too long. So anyway, you know, I think where I'm going to start out with my videos is showing you how I've built my collection over the past year, because I'm pretty sure it was in January last year that I started really collecting again for vinyl. And so I kind of like take you through what I've gotten throughout time over there. And first of all, what I started with, that was what I've had that's traveled with me throughout the years, and I have no idea why or where I've gotten most of this. I've got a couple of records here I'll show you that are the ones that have traveled with me and were not beat to shit and were worth keeping. First, I've got 7-inch of the Splat Cats. It was a band out of Buffalo, New York. And here's the backside. Kind of like it's punk rock essentially. One of the members, Casino El Camino. If you're down in Austin, I don't know if it still exists, but it was in Austin a bunch of years ago. Casino El Camino's Bar and Grill, was a very cool place. Hopefully it still is. So anyway, punk rock right there. Splat Cats, 7-inch. And then from there, what I've had carried with me, I don't know why, although these are pretty decent. In particular, AC/DC, Back in Black. Great record. I mean, this is not really something I have to school anybody on. I know most of you have heard of this. Got the Talking Heads here. Little Creatures. I love the creativity of the Talking Heads. I know I don't always love the music, but the spirit and the creativity is there. And you gotta like that, people thinking outside the box. Because what we hear on the radio a lot of times, at least here in the United States, it's in a little box and it's kind of the same thing over and over. So it's kind of nice to hear this is stop making sense. Decent record. Classic, of course, Pink Floyd. Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, I guess for the two of you that don't know what this is, it's the Dark Side of the Moon. Here's the backside. And it's a gate. Yeah, it's gatefold. Ooh. So pretty. And don't know where I got this, but Steve Martin, comedy album. He's a wild and crazy guy. You can get comedy a million places. Oh, it's a gatefold too. Ooh. Fierce Steve Martin. Whoop. And there's a backside doing his King Tut thing. So anyway, those are the records that have traveled with me. In the next video that I do, which will be pretty shortly, I'll maybe talk about the first few records that I picked up as I'm trying to reassemble my, vinyl, a vinyl collection again. I'll show you, I guess the first thing I'll probably show you in the next video would be the gear, because I'm clearly not using the Crosley record player. My girlfriend's a sweetheart. I love that you got it because it sparked the idea, and I would listen to it now and then, but the Crosley it's got its own speakers too, it just sounds bad. So anyway, that's what I've got. I think it kind of covered what I should cover for an intro video. Tom, High Ramble District. Hopefully, hopefully or not, I don't know. Hopefully you enjoy the videos. If you don't, turn it off. I really appreciate the vinyl community. It's a peaceful place, and it's super informative. I'm getting information from people around the world, information about music that I'm just not going to hear on the radio here, or I'm not going to read about in the local newspapers here. Portland's got a pretty good music scene. There's a lot of good music here. There's a lot that sounds alike. I think if you just like listening to music from one area, it's going to be hard to get a good cross section or to learn new things. So the vinyl community helps me learn a lot of new things. I can't watch MTV anymore. I mean, I could, but I don't think there's music on there anymore. And the radio station, the alternative radio station, I don't know what's an alternative to because it's all mainstream, but they play the same 5 songs over and over and over. So it's kind of dead, It's just like, I'm in the car, there's nothing on. Turn on the local radio station. So again, I'm mostly alternative music, rock music, I like old school and conscious hip hop. What else? Country, like actual country, like Johnny Cash. That real actual country, not pop country. Where it's like, I don't know. You may have seen the recent video by somebody where they just mashed like 6 of the top hits from country hits from the past couple of years, and they all kind of like look and sound the same, and the lyrics are similar, and the rise and the fall of music is similar, and it's it's not what it once was. So the older stuff is really kind of cool. Old funk and soul and old blues is cool too. I'm kind of all over the place, except jazz. My girlfriend's mom, essentially my mother-in-law, I tease her about jazz because I can't stand it. She did have me listen to some Dave Brubeck, which is actually like the only jazz I've listened to that I didn't turn off. I could, it was fine. I didn't like it, but I didn't go like, ugh, I gotta turn it off. So I guess enough picking on jazz. I just won't be showing any jazz. Part of me feels like a bad person for not liking jazz because like everybody loves jazz. I feel like except me, and my girlfriend. Everybody else loves jazz, so I'm sure I'm defective in some way. So be it. That's me. Anyway, hello. Sorry this ran a little bit long, way too long. And cheers. I'll see you soon.